MTG Scoundrels, it's in the cardboard. Ladies and gentlemen, scoundrels of all ages, welcome back to another episode of Modern Weekly. Today on the docket, we once again have my low voice and a wonderful matchup between Eldrazi Tron and Jeskai Blink. Eldrazi Tron's fallen out of favor a little bit recently in the modern meta, while Jeskai Blink has been soaring to the top, getting started with a Misty Rainforest. Tron land into Expedition map. I would assume that Misty Rainforest is going to come down here. There is an Ugin's Labyrinth that's going to imprint a Sire of Seven Deaths, which will then be able to be returned to hand as one of its tapped abilities. But while the Sire is underneath it, it taps for 2. Jeskai Blink here, probably just finding a Surveil land. Surveil lands may in fact be the best lands in the format. Which is saying a lot considering Amulet Titan tends to be one of the best decks. And that is a land-based strategy. But having so many options with Surveil lands, or specifically being able to manipulate the top of your deck with a Surveil land, is very, very potent. And when you're a deck that plays Phlage like Jeskai Blink does, getting one into the graveyard is very powerful. Speaking of which, there's a Phlage in the bin. Here is another Surveil land. More specifically, a Meticulous Archive, putting Plains into the bin. Passing from there. Sequencing going to be important for the Eldrazi Tron player, as Jeskai Blink does in fact play Consign to Memory in the main deck to try to cheat on Quantum Riddler and Phlage. Here's a Thought-Knot Seer, and like clockwork there is a Consign to Memory, countering the spell. Flooded Strand, gonna get cracked here. Finding a Plains. That'll bring us to 20 to 18. And here is Phlage Titan of Fire's Fury. That'll deal 3 damage to the Eldrazi Tron player, and Jeskai Blink will gain 3 life. And then it will go to the graveyard. Four mana for Karn the Great Creator. And here is a Tormod's Crypt from the Wishboard of the Karn the Great Creator. They'll go ahead and get cracked here to exile the graveyard. Hitting 2 Phlages is pretty strong here. There's a Misty Rainforest. There is a 3rd Phlage. That is actually going to target the Karn the Great Creator, get that off the battlefield, and gain 3 life for the Jeskai Blink player. Plenty of mana here. Here's 7 for a Devourer of Destiny. No targets for its cast trigger, but that is a big 6/6 on the board. Misty Rainforest getting cracked. Finding a Steam Vents, it's coming in tapped. There is an Arid Mason passing. Devourer of Destiny going to get in for 6. That'll bring us to 17/17. Here is the Thought-Knot Seer. Phelia is going to get cast in response. And with the Thought-Knot Seer's ability here, showing there's nothing but lands in the hand for the Jeskai Blink player. Arid Mesa got cracked and finding an Elegant Parlor. That'll be the 3rd Surveil land here. Putting a Ragavan into the bin. Another Flooded Strand, passing the turn. On the end step, activating the Ugin's Labyrinth to put Sire of Seven Deaths into hand. Then using 2 mana to crack the Expedition map. Finding the Mine, which will be 2/3 of Tron if played next turn, as there is already an Urza's Tower on the battlefield. Attacking in for 10. Looks like Phelia is going to get in the way of the Devourer of Destiny. It's only taking 4. Here's a Mind Stone. And then 7 mana for Sire of Seven Deaths. Flooded Strand's going to get cracked here on the end step. Sire of Seven Deaths, one of the best creatures to be printed for these Tron decks. Turns out Ward pay 7 life is a real cost. So we're sitting at 17/11. There is an Arena of Glory. And we'll go ahead and escape the Phlage here. Exiling 5 cards from the graveyard on ETB, dealing 3 damage to the Thought-Knot Seer, and gaining 3 life, and then on attack, dealing 3 more damage to the Thought-Knot Seer, so in total gaining 6 life, bringing us back to 17 all. And it's going to get blocked by the Sire of Seven Deaths, which has First Strike and Lifelink. So that'll bring us to 24/17, and of course 5 other abilities. Arena of Glory there, being exerted to make the Phlage have haste. Mind Stone getting cracked. There's another Urza Saga attacking in for 13 here. That'll bring us to 31/4. That makes essentially the Sire of Seven Deaths untargetable. Looking at the card. And scooping him up from there. No way to deal with the Sire. And game 1, going to Eldrazi Tron. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend. I appreciate all of you who have been subbing recently and been following the channel. It's been a wonderful growth period here this past year, and we appreciate all of you for tuning in. Moving to the sideboard here, Eldrazi Tron will probably bring in a certain amount of disruptive flute, depending on how many they're playing in the board. A very effective card in terms of making Consign to Memory cost more early so you can get your threats down. Or at least time your threats to where they have to think about Consign to Memory being an expensive counterspell. And maybe even bringing in the main board another piece of graveyard hate. In terms of Jeskai Blink, this specific build is built a little bit more for the meta in terms of knowing that there is Eldrazi Tron that pops up here a fair bit, and other big mana decks. So expect to see Obsidian Charmaw come in here. I would not be surprised if we also see a Strict Serenade or a Mystical Dispute come in as well, as just some other options to counter some things, because Karn coming down can be pretty annoying for the Jeskai Blink player. But of course Obsidian Charmaw becomes cheap quickly, and when you have ephemerate effects in your main deck, can really run the game out. But as always, deck lists are in fact in the description, so check out those. Moving into our ads, definitely check out our friends over at Arcane Artistry, who happens to be on Eldrazi Tron this evening. They make wonderful food, clue, and treasure tokens in the stained glass style. So definitely check them out. Etsy link in the description below. And of course, they've been featured over on EDH Hijinks as well as the Spike Feeders and this channel, if you want to see their tokens in action. Also check out our friends, hosts of the channel, Grove Warden Games. A wonderful place to store mount. Link to their site is in the description below. And they're working on getting their singles selection up on their storefront, so be on the lookout for that. And of course, check out our friend artist of the channel, Sean Gerard. They make wonderful art and are open to new projects, whether you're looking for something for a professional setting or a last-minute gift for a friend. Definitely check them out. Their Instagram is up on the screen, and their email is in the description below. Of course, last but not least, check out our socials. We are at MTG Scoundrels over on Blue Sky, Twitter, and Facebook. Definitely reach out to us there. Let us know what decks you want to see in the future. And we are moving in here shortly to game number 2 of this match against Eldrazi Tron and Jeskai Blink. Here is a mountain into a Ragavan. Not a bad start. Especially considering that Eldrazi Tron's main answers either cost them 4 life and dismember, or cost at least 3 mana to exile the Ragavan. There is an Ugin's Labyrinth, imprinting the Sire of Seven Deaths, and passing from there. A Flooded Strand is land for turn, a Ragavan getting in for 2. Top card will be exiled for the Eldrazi Tron player, and a treasure token will be made by the Jeskai player. Being as I do not believe they also probably won't be casting that Expedition map here, as 3 mana available. Ooh, in response to the crack of the Flooded Strand, Disruptor Flute comes in. Will that resolve? Would mean the Jeskai Blink player has to use a treasure. One key thing here The Eldrazi Tron player doing a good job of not naming anything until the Disruptor Flute resolves. If it resolves, then go ahead and name it, ladies and gentlemen. Ooh, looks like it resolves. It looks like they're naming Obsidian Charmaw. Interesting choice here, but that is the card that will ultimately ruin Eldrazi Tron's day. Consign is annoying, but that doesn't mess with the mana in the same way. So Jeskai Blink's going to go to 17 thanks to finding this Hallowed Fountain untapped. Passing from there. There's a power plant. I say they did in fact cast that Fable of the Mirror Breaker last turn. They were just in the process of getting all that stuff out. Here's a Kozilek's command. That'll deal with the Ragavan, exiling it and making an Eldrazi spawn token. Fable the Mirror Breaker going to 2. Discarding a Solitude to draw a card. Excuse me, that was 2 Solitudes. Guess recognizing that this is not the spot for him. Goblin Shaman going to get in. Create a treasure token. That'll bring us to 16 to 17. Here's a Meticulous Archive. That'll surveil. The Blink player looks like they are leaving it on top. And passing. There is another Tron piece. So we have Power Plant and Mine. There's a Relic of Progenitus, which is pretty solid into a Phlage. And here's another Relic of Progenitus. Cards that used to be main board for Eldrazi Tron. Phelia getting flashed in on the end step. Fable of the Mirror Breaker going to its 3rd chapter. And there's Quantum Riddler. One of the reasons the Blink decks went Jeskai. Drew 1 card off of it entering. Phelia and the Goblin Shaman token getting in here. The Phelia targeting the Quantum Riddler to blink it. It'll come back at the end step. Moving to the end step, Riddler comes back in. The Phelia is going to get another counter. And drawing a card off the Riddler, and it doesn't have to go to the Warp Zone thanks to being blinked. The Eldrazi player putting the Sire of Seven Deaths back to hand. And that Phelia gained a +1/+1 counter. We're now at 12 to 17. Okay, there is the 3rd piece of Tron. So now 8 mana, not including the Eldrazi spawn available. Relic of Progenitus getting cracked here. To exile the graveyards and draw a card. There's 7 mana for a Sire of Seven Deaths. There is Consign to Memory. That'll counter the Sire. Passing from there. copying the Quantum Riddler with the reflection of Kiki Jiki. Oh, with a reflection token. That's cute. Gotta love that. Here's a Dismember that's going to deal with the Phelia. Taking 4, going to 8. However, scooping them up from there because there is at least 8 power on the board and no blockers. So game 2. Going to go to Jeskai Blink. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend. Let us know where your deck sits in the meta in the comments below. Modern is in a wonderful spot currently, in terms of a lot of decks having the possibility of being able to take down a tournament at any time, and there being plenty of answers to deal with strong threats. One thing that will be interesting will be how Lorwyn Revealed ultimately provides new cards for the format. Probably the only format that wasn't affected by Avatar, for the most part, was in fact Modern. As we saw a little bit of play from Badgermole Cub. And of course, I tend to like Phoenix Fleet Airship. And of course, Badgermole Cub has been in the Yawgmoth builds and has brought that deck back from obscurity. Which that deck at one point was one of the best decks in the format. Both players looking at 7. But Lorwyn, of course, is going to bring a certain amount of typal energy. Whether it's merfolk or goblins, or all the changelings that will enter the format. I guess we'll see how many of them there are, and if they're powerful enough to affect the format. But I wouldn't be surprised if plenty of them are tried. And of course, more of the Shocklands being reprinted is pretty huge. It'll drive the prices down and make Modern even more accessible. So definitely get in on that if you haven't. They've been doing a good job of reprinting the Shocklands the past few years. Whether it was Ravnica Remastered or more recently Edge of Eternities. And who knows, maybe we'll even see a Thoughtseize reprint into Standard with Lorwyn coming up. Or having a Bitter Blossom callback of sorts. Looks like Eldrazi Tron's going to stick on 6. Gonna show a Devour of Destiny. Look at the top 4 cards. Exiling 3 here and putting 1 on top. Then starting off with a mine into an expedition map and passing the turn. Flooded Strand going to get cracked. To find a red source of some sort and play Ragavan Nimble Pilferer. Urza's Tower is the land for turn here. And with map on board looking to possibly hit Tron on turn 3, which would be a tale as old as time. And it looks like that was in fact a Steam Vents that was found, so we're at 20 to 17. another flooded strand. Ragavan's going to get in. Exile a tower off the top. Making a treasure token. Flooded strand going to get cracked. Finding a plains here. And there is an Obsidian Charmaw. Definitely not what the Eldrazi Tron player was wanting to see on turn 2. But now having to make the decision, with the tower being targeted, to float a mana and crack the expedition map. A lot of times Tron decks will have a redundant piece in hand. So finding the tower here. But there's now 6 power on the board for the Eldrazi Tron player. Or excuse me, for the Jeskai Blink player. That's what Tron is facing down. There's a tower. Into a Vexing Bauble, which will stop any Solitude shenanigans or Force of Negation if cast for free. Getting in for 6 here. That'll bring us to 12 to 16. Ooh, exiling a Dismember off the top. Eldrazi Tron can't be happy to see that. There's a Thundering Falls, surveil land for the turn. One white mana. There's an Ephemerate on the Obsidian Charmaw. And just going to scoop it up from there. Game, set, match. Going to Jeskai Blink. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend. And we will see you all next week.